This is the Kaizen Way, the show dedicated entirely to mindset and continuous improvement. Join us on an engaging and insightful journey as we bring you exclusive conversations between remarkable leaders from various domains. Twice a month, we'll connect you with these trailblazers right from your favorite podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, and Google. Live recordings are available on YouTube and Spotify. This show is made possible thanks to our incredible sponsor, Modern Kaizen LLC. They are the go-to experts for employee and organizational development, empowering teams to reach new heights of success. Make sure to ask about creative funding options that can cover the full cost of your training vision. Visit them on the web at modernkaizen.com and make sure to connect with them on LinkedIn. Now, get ready for an extraordinary show where leaders talk with leaders, and together we'll embrace the power of outward mindset and continuous improvement. Here's your host, Mike Monroe.
What's up, everybody? It's Mike Monroe here with the Kaizen Way. We're back. We're ready to rock. I've got a great guest for you guys today. I'm super excited. Mario Riel, good morning to you. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us. How's your day going?
Yeah, I'm going great, man. Good morning. How you doing? I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited and can't wait for our discussion.
Me too. Super excited to be here. I know we got some great topics. Let's get right into it. So Mario, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your name? What's your role? What company do you work for? And then my favorite thing, what's something unique about you?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Mario Rial. Currently, I'm the Director of Operations for a company called NOARK / CHINT Power Systems. I'm in charge of the entire plant there. So I'm in charge of the supply chain, warehouse operations, the IT department. Something interesting about me is I'm a youth baseball coach. So currently I'm coaching both of my sons in baseball. My daughter's going to start this year, so I'm going to have a really busy life, kind of teaching her and kind of starting from the beginning, right? Which, to me is kind of exciting, right? Just starting from those first steps. So, super excited.
That's awesome. I have to admit, I'm so excited to get to that point in my life. I've got two boys myself. We just welcomed Dorian into the world in June of this year. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped. It's I have to admit, I'm a big baseball fan. So while I have my agenda and the boys will have their agenda, there will be some, bias and, hey guys, baseball, let's play some baseball. So, but we'll see, ultimately it's their choice. But if I was rooting for any sport, I have to admit, I'm so excited about that.
Who's your team?
Don't ask me that, because then everyone's going to be mad at me.
I was going to log off depending on the
Oh, man. My whole family, or my dad's side of the family, moreover, is all from Massachusetts. So I grew up watching the Red Sox all through the Bambino curse up into 2004 when we won the World Series for the first time in, 81 years. Mm-hmm. And then it's been tough to be a Red Sox fan post 2018, with the core curse there and so forth and whatnot. Yeah. But even still, that's always been kind of my family's thing. Plus, if you're a Dodgers fan, I'm sure you guys are a fan of stealing all of our players. I have to admit, I was really, really, really sad to see Mookie Betts go. So
I won't say Mookie at all in this conversation, or I won't say Mookie Betts.
Thank God David Ortiz retired before the Dodgers could steal him, right? So tell me a little bit about your journey. Where do you come from? What steps did you take? How did you get into such a leadership role?
Yeah, sure. Man, what a journey. So I really got started from the bottom up, really. Really got into my first real job was a manufacturing plant called Henkel back when I was 21 years old. And again, I was just a, level 1 production worker. So all I did was just fill up these, adhesive syringes with glue, pretty much on an assembly line. And that's all I did. Of course, my kind of mindset was I always wanted to grow and develop and, get not do that my whole life. So what I did was, I kept going to school. Fortunately, an opportunity came up. I believe the position was called a production coordinator. And that position was more managing the label program. They kind of had a complex label program where each syringe had like barcodes and color and all kinds of different designs. So it was kind of like a designing / engineering role, I guess. So fortunately I got it, which I was super excited. So I kind of met my goal to get into the next step. I did that for a little bit, and then I still wanted to move more into like an office job, right? My mindset's always been, move up within the company. And, at that time I was like, I want to go from production to office, no matter what it was, right? No matter what the position. So one of the things I've done, and one of the advice I have for a lot of young people who are trying to gain experience, is just learn every position, try to learn every other role, right? Even if it's not, part of your job. So one of the things I used to do is, like, on my breaks, on my lunch, I used to go up to the planning and purchasing department, and I used to just watch them. I should just watch them, what they do, kind of learn what they do. I'm really, I'm appreciative of the people there who let me eat my sandwich during lunch and just kind of watch them and ask questions. So they're really, helpful with that. Eventually, as we went, they were, I was asking, hey, let me, do some production orders. Let me print that out. Let me pass it out to production. Oh, let me, play with the system. Let me run some Excel reports, so I kind of gained that experience at that time. So, that's really my advice for everyone. Just learn, make that effort, wherever you want to go. Unfortunately, that plant closed down around that time, and I got an opportunity, a company called Bostic. And that's what really kind of, I would say my biggest gain in terms of development. That's where I really, gain, understanding of like lean. That's where I really understood, what Kaizen was. That's where I really first I took leadership classes and kind of took more of a leadership role. So they kind of hired me as a planning. The position was called like a operations specialist, and it was a little bit of everything, right? It was production planning. It was purchasing, procurement. It was like an HR generalist, and then like a safety coordinator. So all those, and which was great for me because I love, learning different things. So it was like a great opportunity for myself. And I want to give a shout out to my boss at the time, Paul Swaney. He's the one who really, really gave me a chance. Just because I didn't have as much experience, but I did gain that little experience with just learning the purchase and production. That's the reason I got the, opportunity. But he really kind of pushed me in terms of, finishing school and just teaching me new things, and really showing me the lean way, right? So I really give him a shout out for doing that. He was kind of like a mentor at that time, right? And I still talk to him to today. So he's doing really well himself. So, and then after that, I went to Fender. So I went to Fender Guitars, got hired as a senior production planner. And within 6-7 months, I got promoted to a planning supervisor. So again, really my mindset, my goal is always to move up, right? Always develop, always learn. So I was there for a couple of years. Fender was great in terms of like, they had a continuous improvement, lean department. So there was a lot of that going on. One of my favorite, leadership classes I ever took was called Situation Leadership. And it's really, that class was really about just adapting your leadership style to the people you're trying to teach, right? So I really appreciated that. I did a lot of continuous improvement things in that company as well. And then after that, I went to Myers Power Products, and I got hired as a materials manager. And then there, I was kind of charge of the warehouse, shipping, receiving. I was charge of the planning department as well, and it's just inventory overall. So then, different steps in my life, you develop those, different skills. You learn new things. You start experiencing leadership with different kinds of people, looking at the different cultures and things of that nature. And then from there, I am now at NOARK, and then I got hired as the director of operations. So, it took a while. You learn every step. You have challenges, and you learn from those, and you make mistakes, and of course, they always say you learn best from all your mistakes, right? So I did that. I definitely did that throughout my way, and I'm here now.
Beautiful. That's there was a lot of steps there, but something that was so consistent through that entire story there is your mindset, right? In that growth mindset, that continuous improvement, keep moving up, keep learning new things, right?
Yep,
and that really is the spice of life, right? Is continuously learning. I mean, there's so many folks that I'm proud to associate with, and that the world is going to throw me through fate or whatever. And that's all like the same mindset, right? Is that your cup is never full. There's always an opportunity to learn a new skill. It's just really, really great. So, you had mentioned a leader that had kind of turned into a mentor there. So talk to me a little bit about his mindset and how maybe his mindset inspired you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing that really attracted me to him was he wasn't a like a black and white manager or leader, right? He was out there. He was different. Even during our interview process, he didn't ask me one interview question. He just showed me on the floor, and was kind of like, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. He did. He gave me some questions, but not like what's your biggest strength or your biggest weakness or anything like that. He was just very pumped up, very excited. A lot of energy, and it really attracted me. Like, man, this guy's cool. That's my first thought. Like, man, this guy's cool. I would love to work for him. Just the way his leadership style was, right? One of the things I really appreciated with him was just honesty, right? And that's what I try to bring to my team as well. Very honest, even if it was good or bad news, right? And it wasn't disrespectful. If there's any kind of criticism or things I need to work on, it was more for me to develop and improve my processes. So his communication style, just being honest, always excited. When he pushes you, it's not, hey, we got to do this or do that. It was more of a like, you know what, this is the reason why. This is why we're doing it. Let's do it. He's very a good pump up cheerleader guy, right? And I really appreciated that.
I like to call those folks authentic, right?
Yeah.
Just an authentic human being, right? They know
Right.
where they stand. They're passionate about their people, and when they really encourage their folks, right? It comes from a place of genuine interest, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a fine line to walk of being genuinely interested
Right.
in people's growth, right? And you can't fake that. That's what makes those people so authentic.
Like a great leader is someone who cares, right? And you can feel that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can feel someone who's just doing it for the job, or selfish, being selfish, about his role. But there's people who really care, right? And you can see that, you can see through that, who care for their employees, who care for their development, and that's something I believe he had.
Now, let me ask you one of the hardest questions, and I know none of these were on the example questions, right? But we're flowing, right? That's what this is all about.
Let's do it.
So let me ask you this. So for someone that maybe doesn't feel like they're that authentic person, right? Or they're as a leader, they're kind of in the job role, right? How do you develop that ability to care, or how do you develop the ability maybe to communicate the fact that you do care, right? Because I've been a lot of people over the years that genuinely do care, but they're just bad at communicating that they do care, right? So what are some steps? What are some things that those folks can do that can really kind of put that out there?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? Because everyone has different leadership styles. Some communicate better than others. Some don't provide positive feedback as much as they want, even though they like you, they're nice. That's not really their thing, right? Comes down to, I think, feedback from the employee to the leader. I think that's one of the biggest scares for leaders is receiving that feedback from an employee, right? So one of the things I like to do, when I do performance reviews or if I'm having meetings, like, hey, how am I doing as a leader? What are things that I'm not doing that it's not either supporting you or not giving that feedback. So there's a lot of times a lot of employees get nervous about that question, right? Because they don't want to offend you, they don't want to look bad. But once you build that relationship, right, and you built that with your employee, they're honest, right? It's about that honesty between each other. So I think that's important to really connect with that person and get that feedback. So next time you'll feel a little bit more confident. You'll have a better relationship with your employee, and then your communication will be better back and forth.
Nailed it. I love it. And that was a tough question. I know I threw you kind of a curveball there.
Sorry, yeah, that's a good question.
But it is. I mean, and we it's good for us to kind of think about what that process was. And I totally agree with you. I think it really starts with the relationship and laying that foundation of trust, right? And being honest and open. And then as your communication with these folks start to develop, it comes more from a place of confidence, right?
Right.
And really, you develop the confidence in the way that you communicate, right? So,
got it.
And a lot of that really kind of comes from your mindset, right? And I think if you have that growth and outward mindset of trying to help and really genuinely care about people, those relationships tend to really develop a lot more organically, I think is the word I'm looking for. So how can organizations foster resilience and optimism amongst their workforce during times of change and adversity? And I specifically like this question because, as you know, as we were talking, right, just outside the window over there, I have more of an orange glow than normal. There's literally a wildfire happening. So if you guys are hearing helicopters and jets flying over, it's because that side is on fire, right? But we're keeping it lit here in the studio.
Right, that was all just fire. It's okay. It's all good.
That was all just to tee up that bad joke. But again, to you, how can organizations, really foster this resilience, optimism amongst their workforce, especially during times of adversity? What do you think?
Oh yeah. Change is the hardest thing to do, right? As an organization, especially for the employee, right? It's always the hardest thing to do. So really, my biggest thing has always been the biggest thing in terms of change, and it's just communication. It really comes down to that, right? And one of the things I like to do, any kind of change, either if it's change of management, or change of leadership, or change of processes, or change of the vision or direction of the company. What I do is I kind of we'll say, I don't know, 4 things really. One is just communicate that change to the employees. Like why, what the change is. 2 is kind of, what's the reasoning behind the change, right? So they kind of have an understanding why we're doing this change. 3 is how is it going to benefit the company, right? How is this change is going to help the company grow and develop? And then 4, and the most important one is, how is this going to make, change for you, and how is this going to make it better for yourself, right? Because to be honest, everyone's selfish, right? And naturally selfish, right? So they always want to know what's the benefit of themselves, right? So I always like to say, how is this going to benefit them, right? Is it either going to be financial? Is it going to be an opportunity to move up? Is it going to make their life easier? Maybe this is a process change where, instead of spending all this time on, doing these reports, it's going to cut it down to, half that time. So any kind of change or benefit for them usually works out, right? And then number 2 is really got to keep that employee involved, right? When an employee has this change and they know they're part of that change and they're making it better and they're involved, they seem to accept it more, right? Worst thing leadership and you could really do is just change something without any kind of communication or getting any kind of ideas from the employee, right? Because they're going to reject that right away, right? But if you keep them involved and you have meetings with them and you get their ideas and then you implement those ideas into that change, you're golden, right? And then that kind of changed their mindset. Like, wow, I'm part of this. I'm part of this corporation. I'm part of this change. I'm part of this, helping them. So it works out.
That's one of the coolest moments, I think, is when you really start to see folks really internalize and become a part of the organization, right? Because you're right. We're all naturally selfish, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's the whole fight or flight thing that's ingrained to us, right? But as we start to grow in an organization and become a part of, the bigger community, it's really a special thing. And I really love that you're talking about the involvement thing. I don't know if you know Javier Vasquez, but he was on the show here, and he was actually talking about someone that he had worked with that before he came in and was doing some lean initiatives. One of the folks that was a part of that project said no one had ever listened to my ideas, and he had been there for 30 years, right? So, I mean, that's a long time to not be involved, right? But that involvement is such a key piece of that. And it's crazy how that one little piece in just really kind of confirming these folks and their ideas and their involvement in the entire operation, it makes such a big difference. Such a big difference.
When you look at the ways, the wastes of lean, right? It used to be 7, right? That was the biggest thing. Then they added the 8th, which is not utilizing the skills, right? And I think that's like my favorite one of all of them, because that's really one of the biggest parts, right? When you're making any kind of change or an improvement in terms of lean. So,
and I have to admit, I feel like just from my experience with working with so many businesses over the years, that is the number one, or I can't say number one. That's a blanket statement, but it's a very prominent piece of the waste ecosystem there, because it really is. I've seen so many people, and it's like they'll be, at an organization for so many years, and then we find out it's like, wait, you can do that? I've been here for 5 years. How have you never told us that you can code or do these things, right? And it's, and then also to the folks that are, listening to this, that are maybe looking at moving up, verbalize your skills, tell people about the education that you're taking, tell people about the skills that you have. Because I mean, as much as we'd all like to be, we're not psychic, right?
Right.
So we have to communicate, and that comes on both sides of the spectrum there.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, that's a great point because you could be a say a production worker, but you can have some experience in the military where you were an engineer, where you could add a lot of value, right? Because I've seen it in the past where I've been companies where they'll bring the engineers and they'll bring management, they'll make some changes, say to like a pale line or something, without really getting any kind of feedback from the employee. Where once they do all this design, and the employee's like, wait, that's not going to work. And they don't know because they're not into the day-to-day operations, right? And then they have to reverse and redesign just because of that. So, but if they would have done that in the beginning, they would have, been more efficient. So, super important that we grab that information from the day-to-day people who are really the workers, right? The people who really could, have the power of change. So.
I mean, they know it better than anyone else does, right? I mean,
Exactly. Right.
they're there day in and day out. So it's
Mm-hmm.
most important that we, especially when we're examining current processes, right,
Mm-hmm.
that we elicit their buy-in and their feedback. Because I mean, if something is inconsistent, or if something isn't optimized, right, or
Mm-hmm.
if it's ergonomically bad for them, they're gonna tell you, so you're gonna
Yeah.
have to ask it.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things of the years now working with Kashan that he's always been really good about, is just involving those folks. And
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit, I love being in the room, right? Because it's sometimes they'll open the floor there, and they don't necessarily know Kashan, right? So there's that kind
Yeah.
of little bits of reluctance of like, can I really just say what I think? And then he really kind of creates that vibe of like, yeah, just tell me what's going on. And then they start firing stuff off, and
Right.
it's
Right.
just like, it's amazing to see, right? Because they're living it day in
Yeah.
and day, and by the end of that day, though, you could just feel the organizational buy-in has really increased.
Yeah.
It's such a cool thing to be a part of.
It's
Really
beautiful.
is.
It's a beautiful thing to see. Yeah.
Now, on the topic of mindset, this is our kind of our last question here. Can you share any examples of some mindset initiatives? Is there anything that you've done in the past that you really found worked well in developing that mindset?
Yeah, it's just building those relationships. I'm a big believer in team building events. I'm a big believer in taking out my team for lunch and drinks after work. And then that's where you kind of really they kind of open up and you build get to know that person a little bit more. Once and then when you see that communication and then people start having those relationships and those common areas, right? Oh, for example, I'll bring back in the baseball. Oh, I'm a baseball coach. Oh, me too. I should be a baseball coach. Or I play guitar. Oh, I play bass. We should you should play good. So once you build that internal relationship, you create that culture, and then you can get down to really business. Then you can start that trust, right? And then you can talk about business and kind of have that mindset and be like, this guy, this person is really cool. We're more common than we thought. Let's work together on the professional side and get things done. So I always thought, I'm always about team building, relationships. I really, really want that culture where that family culture. And you hear that a lot, but I think it's really important. Because family, you never. What's great about the family culture, you're never going to get along, right? Just like a regular family, you're not always going to agree with each other. There's going to be internal fights, right? Slash, but you break through that and you still, become one, work with each other, and get to the ultimate goal.
There was a huge boom there, as you were talking about the team building and kind of taking folks out and getting to know your folks and
Mm-hmm.
building those relationships specifically, right?
Right.
And that's the common ground, right? That's one of those skills that I find with a lot of people is not necessarily something that they've developed, right? But that common ground opportunity. Hey, you play guitar, I play bass. Let's jam, right? Oh, you're a
Yep.
baseball fan. Who's your team, right? And even if there's just those little things, those little pieces of common
Right.
ground, that's where relationships start. It's right there. You don't just jump into being best friends. And I think a lot of times, and that's true of any relationship anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Is that they take a lot of time. So it's funny that sometimes we have this unrealistic kind of concept of time, right? It's like, no, these things take time to develop there. So it's really cool. I very rarely I have someone that's really focused on that common ground thing, and for me specifically, that is one of those big pieces that has always been, I guess you could say, my secret weapon. But I learned that back in the car business when I was selling cars. I had a manager there. He told me, he's like, go out and make a friend. He's like, don't go out and sell a car. Go out and make a friend. And he really kind of taught me the whole common ground thing. And it's incredible. It's incredible for what it's done for me. So Adam, if you're listening to me, I hope Cash is doing well. And I appreciate everything that you taught me there, brother. So, all right. Well, on that note, we're getting to the end of the show here. Mario, you and I have been going back and forth here. We had a nice long show here. I really appreciate you. So as always, I like to give the guests a chance to promote any and everything, just to kind of get the word out about something good, something that you're passionate about. So, Mario, what do you want to promote today?
Yeah, I have a special heart for kids in my life. Just not only because I have 3 kids, but just always, always had it within me. So me and my family always donate to St. Jude. So every year, so we give them a lot of money. We do a lot of volunteer work for them. So that's something, that'd be great if, other people can help out, for the kids who are less fortunate, who got, the wrong hand right on the deck. So, that'd be great if other people can kind of help out with that. So that's really my biggest passion is just kids.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And it's consistent with who we've gotten to know today, right? This person who has a heart for community, has a heart for our future and developing, the kids and just developing people. I mean, it's been a true honor, sitting here chatting with you, Mario. It's been great to have you on the show here. So
yeah, no, thank you, Mike. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I had a great time.
Again, I want to thank everybody that's joining us for today on the show. Remember, you can find our show on all of the podcast platforms. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, but you'd rather listen to it on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, it's available on all of those. So please feel free to connect that way. Again, Mario, can't thank you enough, dude. It's been so awesome having you on the show here. I look forward to hearing more about your success and your upward momentum. And, cheers to the cup never being full, right?
Cheers, man. Thank you.